Hey everyone, thanks so much for tuning into the podcast. This is the season finale. I was going to do something else, but decided I think the episode with Russ is the one for the end of the season. So welcome, Russ. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you. I hope I don't disappoint in the finale. I don't want to do a Game of Thrones on you or anything.
Oh, the pressure.
Right.
Oh gosh, it's Russ. It's going to be amazing. Yeah. Anyway, so everybody knows who you are. Russ is the sort of like main Kunane. That's a South African term. He's the main guy in the scene. We all look up to Russ. He's got one of the biggest channels in the retro gaming scene. Does a few other things now on the channel as well. So we'll get into that. Yeah, thanks for joining me on the last episode.
I'm honored. I love this podcast and being coy about it. But like I messaged him and said, hey, I haven't seen an invite to season 3 here. And
Yes.
I'm feeling a little bit of FOMO here.
Yeah.
And so
you did
he's accommodating me too.
You were like, Adin, I'm a little bit upset with you. No, it wasn't that bad, but yeah. Yeah, I think it's typical to nerds who just are too polite.
Want to take up mine?
Yes.
And yeah.
Because I have that issue in the scene all the time, like where no one kind of says what they want because they're just being too nice and too polite. And I'm like, oh, Russ is very busy. He's doing other podcasts and he's got a big channel. So I don't want to overstay my welcome. And you're like, Adin, why haven't you invited me? Damn it. So I was very pleased to get that message.
Mm.
I wanted to start the episode by getting the nonsense out the way, and then we can just get into more fun stuff because you've had some pretty nasty things happen. And I knew about it. You chatted on a chat group that we're on, and I reached out to you and said, oh, I hope everything's okay. But I don't think I quite understood how serious it was until I think it was The Verge. Is it The Verge that did an article on you? Yeah, I just wanted to ask you about it. Maybe just walk us through the strikes that you experienced with Nintendo and how that's impacted your channel.
Yeah, I did a video about the MiG switch, which is like a switch cartridge dumper and cartridge thing.
Yes.
And I had already done one, I don't know, 6 months ago or whatever.
Yeah.
But I was not as careful in this most recent video, and I showed a little bit of Nintendo footage without really thinking it through. It was just like the title screen of a Mario game, but it was like 3 seconds. But it was enough for Nintendo to say, put in a copyright strike and say, that is our IP right there. You have to remove the entire video and here is a strike, basically. And so it's not really a strike because I was doing a MiG switch video, which is so ironic because the whole video was talking about why Nintendo's anti-piracy measures make this a good tool for preservation.
Yes.
And, but anyway, yeah, so they took that video down and I thought, okay, that was a bridge too far, that the modern console, that I get the strike. And one strike on your channel out of 3 it's more amusing than anything, I think. It's just, oh, look at that. I got some attention from Nintendo.
Way of putting it.
And then maybe... Yeah, exactly. And then maybe a week later, I got another, after that first strike, I was like, okay, I'm just going to go back to just the same stuff I always do, which is emulation, tutorials, guides, all the kind of stuff that I like to do. And so I did a video about a new Wii U emulator that was coming out. Again, a dead console, this kind of thing that is like my bread and butter. It's like, hey, there's a new emulator out. Let's see what it can do. And so it was just like a hardware showcase or software showcase, really. And in that video, I did the same stuff I always do is I test my favorite games, which all happen to be Nintendo games, like Breath of the Wild, stuff like that, which have been tested, 50 times previously in other videos and whatnot. But that one got another strike. And so I learned a lot at that moment. Was like, okay, I'm still on Nintendo's radar.
Yeah.
And even the things that were acceptable or not noticed previously are no longer acceptable, basically. And that the rules had changed. And no one has a rule book. And so I was like, okay, I don't know what I can show and what I can't show. And I just, at that point, just removed all Nintendo content from my channel, like just saying, okay, not even Super Mario Land on the Game Boy is going to get me screen time at this point. And it was hard at first because I had a couple of videos in the works. And so I was working on Ioneel Micro, like the little one.
Yes.
And I had a lot of footage there to show off how beautiful some Nintendo games looked on that screen. And it was too far along in the process. I was in the middle of uploading when I got my second strike. So I had to cancel the upload and then go and just blur everything out so that I could get the video out in time. And in hindsight, I probably should have just delayed it a few days, made new footage, but I was also trying to get it out before the pre-order ended because there was like 2 days left. And I was like, I want to make sure people are informed if they're going to pre-order this thing. And it's a real bad situation. Anyway, so I got the second strike, and that's when things get real. And I didn't realize that. So then it's okay. One more and I'm out of a job. I'm homeless or jobless. And for showing Nintendo content. And so,
Sure.
so I made that kind of drastic change and said, all right, let's become a Sega and Sony channel. And so I've been very careful about it now, and that I still show those consoles. I will still show Switch emulation and Wii U emulation, but I won't show any Nintendo footage, because that's the only leverage Nintendo has with this copyright system, is to basically take down footage of their game, not necessarily emulation of their console. And so that's what I've been doing. And everyone's been most people have been very accommodating about this whole thing. For example, Emulation Station, like the developers behind that and whatnot, a lot of the theme developers made new theme options that have no Nintendo content in the theme. So that I can scroll through and show it on camera without having to show Mario's face pop, basically. And so
like Dietary,
really
those
cool and
sorts of things.
accommodating. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And so it's been super good. And the nice thing is that I've got 8 days until that first strike comes off. And so yeah, I don't plan on making any drastic changes to what I've been doing. I've just adapted, but that pressure will at least be alleviated a little bit, you know?
Yes.
There's always a black cloud, and I think you can probably think about this as well, is like Nintendo at any time could go back to any old video and be like, you know what? This has got a Mario like on it, another strike, anytime. And I've just had to live with that precarious balance. I'm like, they haven't come after me yet. Maybe they won't come after me for the old stuff at least. And so I won't do anything new to get onto their radar. Long story, but yeah, that's basically where I am with that.
That's crazy, man. Yeah, I think I don't know if I did understand that you had a second strike, but that is really where shit gets real, man. And it's scary. Like, for instance, okay, this is very different, but I got hacked just before my channel started taking off. And so I lost my YouTube channel for like a month and a half.
Oh my gosh.
At that stage, because I was pretty serious about YouTube, and that's around the time where I'd given myself that ultimatum to either succeed or quit. And I thought to myself, what if, in my mind, I was thinking of where I am now. So it's just come back to my mind, especially with the stuff that happened to you. And I thought, if it's taken away from me, I've invested so much of my life into this, and it's a huge like passion for us. It's not just, I understand the income thing and all that kind of thing. Both you and I have reinvented ourselves a couple of times throughout our lives. So in the end, we'd be fine. But it's just such a huge loss emotionally that I always look at things from that perspective. But yeah, that's where, when I understood the sort of brevity of what you had gone through, I realized how severe it must have been for you and your wife. It must have been pretty scary.
Yeah, it's a strange idea. First of all, I think we're both like super blessed to be able to like just make videos. I think it's a really cool and a way to express ourselves. But it is also, it's a weird thought to think somebody else is going to take away my ability to express myself. You know, that somebody else is going to take away my channel. And, you know, if I hadn't gotten a third strike and if they had, you know, deleted the channel and all that, they don't just delete your channel. You can't just make a second channel. They take away your Google account and your ability to make future videos. And so it's not that I could just make a second channel and push everything over and be like, hey, this is now Retro Game Core 2. Like, that's not how it works. YouTube cancels your account. And so so at that point, your only option is to basically be a creator under somebody else, like to basically be a larger outlet would be like, okay, he is now a video maker within us.
Yes.
And another thing, I got a couple offers from outlets who were like, listen, we got your back. If anything happens,
if shit
like,
goes
you can
down,
come work for us kind of thing,
cool.
you know?
Okay.
And so that was a really amazing, very flattering, but it was one of those words, holy crap, this could actually, my love of Mario and showing off the joy of playing these games on various things, which is something I think we should be able to do, could just take away my livelihood. The joy of showing Mario, which is crazy.
That's the thing. And that's why I mentioned like the emotional aspect of it, is because I almost went through like the stages of grief when I fully understood what had happened to you, because I was so angry for a few days and I was just like, F Nintendo. Like, I'm never showing one of their games ever again. I'm never like promoting or telling it. Because the amount of times I've said on my channel that New Super Mario Bros., the 3DS version, is like my favorite Mario Bros. Of all time, and shown it on screen, it really sent a chill down my spine. But just that we have such a strong emotional connection to these games. The OG Super Mario, I have such strong childhood memories of that game, like fond memories. And that's why I showed it in my first videos, like over and over again. And it really feels like a betrayal to me. this company that I love and appreciate has screwed over someone that I respect. It just didn't, it did not feel great to me.
Yeah. And I understand their side of things. They want to protect their IP. It's a little bit drastic, but I tried to get my videos blocked in Japan because it's only like 1% of my audience is in Japan.
Yes.
But those require like elevated permissions. And when I requested those permissions and whatnot, and YouTube denied me and said, you know what? No, you don't have the ability to make these changes. It's too complicated on our end. And so I tried to mitigate this, to at least alleviate some of that pressure, but unfortunately it's just there. And it sucks because it's not just Mario. We're talking Metroid, F-Zero, Zelda, all these things that are like huge franchises that are specific testing benchmarks that I've used on this channel for years. You know, like, does F-Zero play on GameCube? Like, that's always a question. It's always something to show off. And now it's just, no, now it's going to be Star Wars Rogue Squadron. It's the benchmark. And so I had to kind of change that up.
That's the first time Zoo used it a while back. And I was like, oh, that's a cool one to test with. And at the time, I didn't realize it would be the new one to use.
Yeah. It's funny because that game, and you know this just from your own kind of experience, but that game is hard to test because there's 10 minutes to get into gameplay.
Yes.
And there's no fast forward on Dolphin on Android. And so you just lose 10 minutes of your life every time that you want to show that game.
Yes.
And F-Zero, at least you can just go in and jump into the settings and start a race right then and there. And so those are little things that a lot of people don't really understand. There are ways to get around it. You could import a memory card, save, and do that kind of stuff. But that, again, is more layers of work.
Extra work. Yes, actually, now that you say that, I remember that because I saw Zoo use the game and I thought, oh, I'll use that in my next game. It's a really nice game. And then I was like 10 minutes in, I was like, oh, screw this, man. I'll just use something else.
Well, there's a reason why no one shows Okami on PS2, because that is like a 25-minute long intro. You can't get past it. You got to hit there and hit A the entire time to get through all the dialogue before you can even just move your little dog around. And so, it's hard with certain.
Yeah, it is a pain. Anyway, okay, so I wanted to get that out and over with in the beginning because it is a little bit upsetting to me, I must be honest. Yeah, I'm still just thinking of it now. It makes me a bit furious because, I mean, you know, we've just got our lives to live and we don't need that in our lives. Anyway, that being said, some creators have taken what happened to you as a reason to become more brash and more...
I get all that. People want to take advantages where they can, and I understand that. And it's overall good for the community because somebody wants to see that footage. If somebody is willing to risk that stuff, then do it. And I totally understand it, but it's very different once you have 2 strikes on your channel and you realize that all this will go away just by showing a game.
Yeah. And where are you now? You must be really like chomping at the bit for the next milestone because you just celebrated 400,000. Yeah, you're at 580,000. Your channel's plodding along. You're doing well. Damn it, man. Anyway. Okay.
It's all good. It's all a reason to... That's always been the interesting thing, even when I was in the military. Is you get hit with so much opposition all the time in life and everything else. And what are you going to do to overcome it? And that's always been like something that helps me rise to the occasion. It's all good.
Yeah. Cool, man. Yeah, you have a great attitude and that is also inspiring in and of itself. I wanted to move on to some devices. I wanted to talk a little bit about the hot topic right for me. Hot topic, these videos have been doing well for all of us. I think someone said, oh, I'm going to make a video about the Retro Pocket 5. And I was like, cool, guaranteed views, have fun. The Retro Pocket 5, the Retro Pocket Mini. Let's start with the Mini because I think I was actually blown away in the beginning and I've gotten a little bit less enthusiastic about it as I've progressed. I'm not 100% sure why. So I want to hear what you think about the Mini, how you're feeling about it. Has it aged well over the last few weeks?
Yeah, same. So same thing where I got it and I was like, okay, really well built. It's got an OLED screen. It's a little bit bigger than your standard 3.5 inch. Yeah. And it's got performance power to be able to play on GameCube and PS2. And at face value and at the price point, I think it all comes together really nicely, you know. But the cracks start to show over time. And it's just the environment it's in. It's not necessarily the handheld itself. And so for me, the ergonomic grips are too bumpy. Like I don't need that much ergonomic grip to it. I would rather have something I can slide in and out of my pocket, you know? And I think that just if it's going to be mini, make it mini and it's an in-betweeny instead. And so I found that if I'm going to be using a handheld like this, I'm like, the Retro Pocket 5 is not that much bigger than it and is such a better experience. And so I would rather have that instead. And so So that's like the RP5 kind of took all the wind out of the Retroid Pocket Mini's sales.
Yeah.
Is the way I see it.
Yeah, like I said, because I showed, I was in my studio with my son today, and I was like, okay, my boy, let's set up one device for you to play game. He loves Pokemon, so what are we going to set up for you? Because I wanted him to like the RG556, and I've convinced him now because he can play all his Android games on there on that nice big screen. And it just got me thinking, because the Mini has got great buttons, the action buttons. I love those action buttons, but they've been like, I know a lot of guys, I think you're also in the camp of let's improve the sticks, but for most gaming, especially like my son just plays Roblox and Pokemon. I think he plays Pokemon DS games, and he doesn't need the sticky outy sticks that the Retro Pocket Mini has. I know they've recessed it a little bit, but it's just not practical for a small device like that, especially with such a tiny screen. Because then you can stream to it, but are you going to stream to it? You know what I mean? There was a lot of possibilities that were possible with the Mini, but the more I use it, I was like, you know what? I'm really just playing New Super Mario 3DS on this. That's and then doing the screen swap thing, and I think that's what most people are going to end up using it for. So
yeah,
a lot of over engineering.
It is right. Exactly. That's a great idea. Over engineering here. It's like it doesn't quite hit the basics in the way that you would think, right? Okay, it's a 4x3 handheld. Is it going to be like an optimal 4x3 experience? And it isn't. You know, it has the whole shaders thing with the screen, you know, all sorts of issues with that as well, the resolution. And so there are just a couple little things where it's like, it is really neat for what it does, but we got so many options. It is one of those where the RP5 for me, it was just like, okay, this is actually the one that I wanted to play, which is so funny because when I was pre-ordering, the opposite. I didn't even order their RP5. I was like, I'm just going to get the Mini. So I bought a Mini.
Cool.
And I was like, because it's so unique. It's finally there, a 4x3 powerful, small handheld. And then I get it, and the screen's not as big as I was hoping. The device is bigger than I was thinking it would be as well. And so, RP5 ended up really sealing the deal for me.
One of the contrarians online where guys were like, the screen's too small. And I'm like, yes, but it's AMOLED and it's not that much smaller. But then I did the measurements because inches is sneaky. If we were doing it in millimeters, it would show the difference a lot more, because then I converted the inches to millimeters, and it's quite a big difference between a 4-inch screen. It's that 3.7 to 4-inch is quite a distance. You know what I mean?
Yeah, especially at a 4x3 aspect ratio. Yeah, it's like a percentage-wise, it's a much bigger jump.
Yes.
And even then, the Retroid Pocket 5, it has a 5.5-inch screen, but very compact for that screen.
Yes.
And even when playing 4x3 content, it's 4.5 inches at that point. And so it's a huge jump in size from the Retroid Pocket Mini, even when playing the games that the Retroid Pocket Mini is really suited best for.
Yeah. Anyway, we went on a very, I think we both like the Retroid Pocket Mini. It's just, I think if we're going to talk about it in those terms, and we're reviewers and we have to be critical. Yeah, and I wanted to talk about the Retroid Pocket 5, but I think we have now. I'm a big fan. Like, I still, someone made the point, because people are like, because a lot of people said on my channel, oh, this looks like a toy. And then I thought to myself, but it is a toy. Actually, that is literally what
I like that.
Yeah. I know you always liked the plastic. I've always, I didn't know, I didn't think I'd like this clear plastic, and I loved it. And so I do still find myself missing this look. I don't know about you.
Yeah, definitely the Retroid Pocket 5, the one main criticism I have for it, besides the feel of the analog sticks, I think that they just position-wise are not the best, but it doesn't have that older charm, the old Retroid charm to it, you know, and I miss that. It is sleek and elegant, and when you're actually playing it, it is really promising. Yeah,
it's interesting. Let's face it, the audience for these devices is like older, mostly guys, and they're all going to like those. Yeah. So I don't know, because my son prefers these sort of things, but I don't think he's the right person to get some market research from. He's 9. So
yeah. But it's a Nintendo Switch Lite. You know, the Retroid Pocket 4 Pro is like, it looks and feels like a Nintendo Switch in its own way. And I think that's what attracts kids from that generation. And so my kids are the same way. I don't think they like the Retroid Pocket 5 at all. So.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, they want to play, you know, Switch and stuff. And
I made this point with Taki when I spoke to him the other day, and he was like, once you should, because I was so proud, like my son loved the Game Boy Color Pokemon games. And then he discovered the DS games and some others because he doesn't always know what systems he's playing. And then he spoke to me today about, yeah, there are some Pokemon games, but they're quite ugly, Daddy. I don't want to play those anymore. And then I realized it's because he's progressing. He's going through the ages of the gaming. And so I said, I'm not going to, he's looked over my shoulder and watched me play modern games on the Steam Deck, but I'm not going to let him get into that because it's going to ruin him. I want him to enjoy that.
Totally.
Yeah.
Otherwise, and we all experienced those upgrades in real time. You know what I mean? We saw Game Boy to Game Boy Color. Oh, it's color now. And then Game Boy Advance. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
You know? And they're just like, next week, let's try out this next generation. And so,
and now they've got like AMOLED at their fingertips. It's ridiculous. And the processing, anyway. We are spoiled. Like today I put, I got my Steam Deck and I just put, The Last of Us on your part 1. And I was just watching the cinematic intros and stuff. Sorry, I'm getting a bit off track here, but I've never played it. And I started watching the series and I was like, hang on, I want to play the game first. And then I started the game. I was like, wait, have I played this? They did the intro sequence exactly as the game. It's almost identical. It's so good.
There are definitely some moments that, because the director of the game is involved in the production of the show too.
Okay.
So they are following his vision. The show definitely goes on tangents. There's a whole episode of things that did not show up at all. Like it's like backstories of guys that you just barely see in the game and stuff, which is beautiful. And I love
that's
that,
cool.
you know, but you'll enjoy Last of Us Part 1. The only thing about that one is I find it crushingly difficult to play it the way it's intended.
Really?
So you'll find that. But there are difficulty sliders and stuff, and I think the PC one has a bit more accessibility options to make it easier. Okay. But Last of Us Part 2, which is like the one that I prefer over the other, like that one had a ton of options in terms of just tailoring the game to suit your needs. And I get freaked out with stealth stuff and dark stuff, and so it was a hard game for me to play. But
you're a retro gamer.
I think the Steam Deck,
you don't want some scary things happening.
But it's still a wonderful experience. So I look forward to hearing how you enjoy that.
Yeah, and I love like storylines and cutscenes. I love all that stuff. I'm busy finishing, so I mustn't get into Last of Us yet, but I'm busy finishing Wolfenstein 2. What's it? New Colossus.
New Colossus, yeah.
It was a bit weird when they put his, sorry, spoiler alert, put his head back on top of this Nazi-engineered body. But other than that, I just love the story and how crazy it is. I love that kind of game, really.
Yeah,
but
awesome.
Yeah, I'll ask you about what you're playing around. But I want to talk about the Anbernic releases, specifically XH, and then there's a rumor about a possible Windows handle. So let's quickly talk about the 406H because I'm personally quite excited about it. You've already reviewed it, haven't you? Being the Retro Game Corpse.
Yeah, I reviewed it a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago. Oh, good for you. That's great. I'm super bitter because I'm trying to get Anbernic to send me devices and just nobody wants to talk to me. I spoke to the one guy that we all speak to on Discord and he's, listen, I'm going to try and figure something out, but he's, I don't know what's going on, why nobody loves me.
No, he is flaky though. Yeah.
All right. So how did you feel about it? I don't think I watched the entire video of yours. What was your final conclusion?
When it comes down to it, I think it's the best Anbernic handheld experience in terms of just like finally nailing all the stuff, you know, like the sticks are right. D-pad is the second ones are not my favorite, but it's still a decent D-pad. It's got analog triggers. It's got nice grips. It's got everything that I want. A new screen, 4 inches and high resolution. It's great, but it's also a little unexciting, which is funny. Like, they finally got everything that I wanted. And I'm like,
okay.
Now what? You know,
I'm going to find something else to do.
No, it is great. The problem is that it came out around the time of the Retroid Pocket 5, and the pricing between these are not too far off. It's like maybe $50 difference after shipping and all that. And so it does, like with the Retroid Pocket Mini, it takes a little bit of the wind out of the sails, but this is entirely different experience in terms of being 4x3. But all the things that I wanted with the Retroid Pocket Mini, 4 full inches. And honestly, I prefer having the analog stick up top when you get to this level of power because for GameCube and PS2 and stuff, like I prefer the analog stick up top. It's a good handheld. It is really good.
Yeah.
But part of me is a little bit embittered that like it took us 25 releases to get here as opposed to the standard 5-ish that you usually would expect with a regular company. And so, it's a little exhausted, but it is still a very good handheld. And this is all very much reviewer problems, not necessarily user problems.
Yeah, I think I may have actually did I order or ask for the purple from Lit NXT? So I'm excited to get it. And you lost me at I don't like the Sega D-pad because I freaking love it.
Oh, nice.
But I'm a Sega kid. Like I mostly played Sega when I was a kid. And yeah, so on the
I mean, if
Cube,
you love,
I love it.
yeah, if you love the Cube, 406H is just a better version of the Cube, if you ask me, because it's not that much bigger. It's a true 4x3 about like the scaling and whatnot.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I definitely like this one. It's the best Ambernick handheld that I've used, basically, where it's got everything right. You know,
Yeah.
It was just a long journey to get here.
Yes, and I think it's going to mature well, apart from the chip. That's why I say, what are you actually going to use these devices for? Because when I gauge from the comments, I often feel like there's actually people who love performance are very vocal. Like when the Retro Pocket 5 came out, there were literal arguments in the comments of my videos. But when you read between the lines, most of the viewers are not pushing performance. They're retro gamers. And so for them, as consumers, it's so cool that these devices that play the same thing we're going to play every time are just getting nicer and better and smoother, and I can chuck on shaders as much as I want and go crazy. And so I'm of the opinion that they should have stuck. I think I'm probably the only reviewer that's probably saying this, but I think they should have stuck with the Switch style joysticks. Maybe because you can stream a bit better on the RG406V6H. I'm wrong. But I just don't like the way they protrude, because if it protrudes as much as this, I don't know what they're thinking here. It's comically like high. It's like madness. Anyway.
Yeah, and it is like that on the Age too, and it's unfortunate. You know, it does make it less pocketable, and I do wish that they had made them at least a little bit more inset. Yes, I think they could have. You would have lost some leverage, but you still would have had a really great experience, because this is the same stick that's on like the Retro Pocket 5, but on the Retro Pocket 5, they actually make it more inset. And so I think it could go down a couple millimeters, but in general, it's not a device I would have pocketed anyway because of the grip. And I'm not losing sleep over it.
That's
personally.
true. Yeah. But I have to laugh at what you said about it's super perfect. Cool. Okay. What's the next device? Because I'm bored now. Because I have this thing with Shem from Retro Breeze, because him and I are both that when something gets too perfect, it's boring, which I'm actually surprised that I like the Retro Pocket 5 as much as I do, because it like pretty much has no quirks. When things get like that, I get bored.
Yeah. It's a weird feeling that I'm sure you probably get a similar thing, where as soon as something good comes out and you get it in your hands, you're like, all right, I just don't want anything else to come out anymore. Let me just play this thing and let me enjoy this. And if this is the last thing, then the good. Let me go to a desert island now, please. And it's one of those funny things that I think us as reviewers just, it's a whole world. Like before I ever started making a YouTube video, I just wanted one handheld. And I spent months like looking into it and researching and trying to figure out whatever. Yeah. I got the RG350M, and I was like, all right, this is end game.
Oh, same.
Let's start a YouTube channel and talk about it. You know what I mean? And so that's how it's, and then the 351 and all the other stuff came out, and it just sucked me into a different world. You know, I wanted to just make a channel that was like, this handheld is perfect, and let's make it even better by changing software and stuff like that. And now look where we are.
Look where we are. Look what you've done, Russ. Look what you've done to all of us. Yeah, it's great. I didn't realize we both had the 350M as our first device.
I had the 350 first, and I thought it was okay. And it was one of those, I'm one of those guys where like if I know something better's out there, then I'll just miss that. And like, oh, I need that. And I knew at the time, because they were both available at first, I was like, I don't know if I like this retro handheld stuff. Let me go with the cheaper one, you know. And then as soon as I got the cheaper one, I was like, oh, now I want that better one. And it was like the first time where wish fulfillment actually worked out, where I got the 350M and I was like, oh, this is actually worth that upgraded price. Yeah. And that's where it like started getting me excited and wanting to talk about it. It had the 480p screen. The other one had a 240p screen. Yeah. And so it was like, you could tell as soon as you turned it on, you're like, oh my gosh, this is so much better. Now I want to talk about it. Yes. And so that's what started the channel, was getting that one, even though it was technically the second Ambernick that I'd had.
Okay, cool. All right. Yeah, it was, mine sits there just proudly, the thing that started it all.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
All right, dude, we've been speaking for a while. We've gotten through point number 4 of my list of about like 16 points. But anyway, let's see what we should talk about. Okay, I think this is a good one, because I think people who enjoy your channel are curious about this, because we spoke about the strikes. And before we started, I don't know if I'm included in the episode, is you mentioned how you are trying to introduce more of you, like more of your thoughts and personal thoughts. And like I said, I really enjoyed your special edition Steam Deck because it was just Russ talking about how, okay, I've just come from a yard sale. And what did you spoke about how you misread your audience at the yard sale.
That's the reason I'm like, okay, everyone, line up, and it's like, they're just going and looking at like kids' books and clothes.
Yeah. You're like, I'm the famous YouTuber. Everyone's going to want to buy my stuff.
Right.
Oh, wait, I'm internet famous. None of these people know who I am.
Thankfully, Crystal is cozy. Like she lives on the island. So I gave her my address. I'm like, hey, you guys want to stop by? I got a garage sale going on. So they came and I just shoved all the stuff onto her. I'm like, hey, take this. You know what I mean? Hey, you ever tried this out? And I charged her like a little paltry sum just for all that stuff. But it was so great just to get it away,
Yes.
And we ended up donating everything afterwards. Like the garage sale itself was just like selling it. We're cutting down prices even as they're asking like, how much is it? $10? I'm like, $5. Like, I'm the one making the negotiations.
Final offer.
That's because, by the time we finished, we just donated it all to a friend of ours who she just basically, she's part of her caregiving thing is that she takes all this stuff and then sends it to the Philippines to underprivileged people.
Oh, nice.
And it's a pretty cheap way to ship things freight here.
Yes.
And so she's able to, so she just took a pound's worth of our stuff and then sent it to the Philippines. So
nice.
Hopefully they got Steam Decks because there are a ton of accessories in that package. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I don't know. All right. Okay, so are you consciously trying to drive your channel in a different direction, a new direction? Or what's like the thoughts? I have thoughts in my mind of maybe the industry's going this way. Maybe I should do a few videos like this to test the audience. Are you doing that sort of thing?
A little bit. I think most of that stuff was done already in the past couple of years. And so testing and seeing, okay, can I talk about laptops? Can I talk about mini PCs? Can I talk about these other things that I find interest in?
Yes.
And so it's all staying within the realm of gaming else, but I do want to follow the things that interest me. But the only real conscious thing that I've been thinking about for the coming year and stuff is getting back to basics. And what I mean by that is just what are the things that I really needed to know when I started my channel?
Okay.
And that was like, what should I buy and how do I set it up? And that's really the crux of all our channels, but to get back to that stuff. So instead of being like, okay, here's a deep dive into the latest release of MuleOS, I'm just using that as an example. Here's the latest release of MuleOS. Here are the new features and whatnot. Instead of doing some of that stuff all the time, which I still like to do, more along the lines of what the heck are these things and what do I do once I get one? And those are the kind of videos I want to keep making. And
yes.
And beyond just that, like I made a recent video about emulation on the Mac Mini where I was like, okay, what about Mac users? Like they want to play emulation. It's actually pretty good. And let me show how it works. And so
Cool.
I wanted to do another guide on that. The other one was just a showcase, but I want to do a guide on that too. So that's, I don't see myself like branching off and obviously I'm not going to change things like sponsor content or any of that stuff. Like that's never been really a thing for me, but I do want to at least be more thoughtful about the stuff. It's hard because at this level, I've also noticed that I am driven by just the release schedule of everybody else. And so I have to basically see what devices are coming out and then cover those as well, just to stay relevant and whatnot. Even if I don't have interest in something, I'll get a lot of requests for it. And I want to also fulfill the needs of my current audience as well. They're like, we want to hear Russ's take on handheld X or whatever. And even if I don't have interest in it, it's okay. That's just the investment time I've got to do into those users as well. And so finding that balance is the big thing for me. But I do want to get back to the basics, not necessarily. A lot of people think you got to branch out if you want to get bigger. You got to branch, and you do in some ways. Personally, I'm good with the size of the channel. I like that it gets bigger, but it's not anything that I'm driving for. And I like to just get back to the basics and really, there are so many people out there who would love to play the things that we play. They just don't know about it. Yeah. And so let's get to those people. That's what I'm really interested in.
I can say that is what sets you apart. I keep saying to people, I have a setup guide for the new Anbernic devices coming. And I'm like, I have a setup guide coming for the RetroPocket 5. And today I was even debating it in my mind because my setup guide for the RetroPocket 4 Pro was good. I think I did it. It was very successful. I still have people thanking me for that video. So it's a good video, but it was exhausting. I don't, if I had to do what you do on a constant basis, I would just burn out within a week. Like I don't think I could do more than, I couldn't do more than one video like that in 2 months. So, and that is always, that was the secret to the success of your video. Like you said, you were good at recipes. And so you took that learning and you applied it to this and it worked. And I still think that's what you're great at.
It is still exhausting though for me too. I want to do my Retroid Pocket 5 video. I have a sense of dread about it that is
okay, so
hold
it's
back.
normal. It's completely normal.
Yeah, it is
Okay.
so much work to make one of those videos, and people don't understand. And you got to just think about every possible situation as it goes in. Cooking is the same way too, but yeah, it is very difficult. And my plan is, my goal, I should say, not my plan. My goal is by the end of this year to do a new Android handheld starter guide, and it'll cover Retroid Pocket 5, Retroid Pocket Mini, Ambernick, all that kind of stuff, and just put it all together in one. I know it'll annoy some people because they just want Retroid settings and stuff. I'm like, okay, I can't make the same video 15 times because they are exhausting. And I tried a little bit of that where I made like an Odin 2 starter guide earlier in the year.
Yes.
And then when the
that
Retroid
was
came
my
out,
idea.
I was like, I was like, okay, let me use the same footage, but this time with the Retroid, and just marry them. And I pulled it off, but it still was not super satisfying for me. And I do want to just make a new Android full-on guide, It's a lot of work, but I do love making that stuff. It gives me a good sense of like fulfillment when I'm done with it. I'm like, this is a thing that wasn't in the world before. Now it is, and it's just living on and helping others.
Yeah. Oh man, I dread talking. No, I don't dread talking to you. It's just that I always walk away inspired to do a lot of very hard work because you just convinced me. Because I'm realizing, okay, you know what it is. Because once I get into it, I have this like no stone unturned mentality. I don't know where it comes from, but I cannot stop until I've answered every single question that comes along my way. So that's probably why I've avoided doing anything technical about the Steam Deck, is because I know it would be like 3 weeks of my life. I'd be like, okay, plugins, mods, and I would just get into it, and it would be like a very long video anyway. But that's a good thing.
And you owe it to the person watching it, that time investment, and that is very difficult to do. And even my reviews, I get a little sense of dread every time I get one of those boxes in the mail. And I'm like, oh man, this is so much work to do it right. I'd love to just press record and then be like, hey guys, here's this thing. Well, sometimes I'll do that with an impressions video, and I even go overboard in those. But it's one of those things where I'm not making a video to just fulfill whatever views or whatever. I'm making a video that satisfies me as a potential viewer. And I have such high standards as a viewer that it makes it even higher as a creator.
Windows handheld. And at first I was like, yes, this is what I've been wanting. Like I've been so excited. I think the first episode I did with you, I was like, I want to do some Windows handhelds. And then they're like, cool, will you do an in-depth review for us? I'm like, yes, that's going to be, there's going to be so much work. Because I just know I'm not going to be able to let it go until I know everything that I need to know to make a nice video. But I do enjoy it. So anyway, you've just convinced me to.
It's so fun that we
harder.
get to do this. It's so cool. Yeah,
exactly. Like you say, like we are very lucky to do this. And I watched a video by, I think I mentioned to him last time, you didn't know who he was, but Peter McKinnon is a camera guy.
Oh yeah.
And you do know.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. Oh yeah.
Oh, okay. There was someone else who didn't know who he was. But he's like near to 6 million. I was actually, I watched one of his videos and I was surprised that his channel had slowed down as much as it has. And it's great to reach that point, because what you were talking about is he now gets to, he was just saying, as long as you, and obviously I did finish the video thinking, yeah, man, but you've got like 6 million subscribers. But as long as people can catch the passion through the video, that's the kernel that you want to snowball on your channel. And that's the part that I took away, that I thought, that's true. And I think every YouTuber friend of mine needs to know that, because as long as people are catching that passion. So I was doing a video the other day and I was just so bored of whatever I was doing, and it came through. And actually, what was the video that did so badly recently? It was, I wonder if it was that, but yeah.
It's a good point too, though, but you got to find that thing that excites you in the video. And I won't make the video until I find that.
Okay.
And it comes through. I think that's one of the things, is I try to convey that kind of feeling.
Yeah.
The problem is that it ends up as a whole, when you look at the channel, and you probably see sometimes that people are like, oh, these guys are too positive. They don't rag on things enough, you know? And we also are looking for joy. We're looking for the good in things. And each thing has its own little piece of joy that's a little bit different and harder to articulate, but it's still a thing worth investigating. So for me, it's, I will talk about things that excite me, and it will excite me when it happens. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's like sugarcoating or anything. It's just that it takes a longer time and a longer look to actually find those things for other people. And it does result in a positive thing for each of them, because each of these handhelds, the Ambernick is a good handheld for certain people. And we got to find out what that is and then tell people what that is.
Yes.
And the next one might be good for other types of people. And so you end up with talking about good stuff the whole time, but it's not necessarily that you're sugarcoating, it's that you're finding the right thing. And so this used to bother me a lot, where the people would be like, oh, Russ is too positive, he can't say a negative. And it's like, well, there are negatives in there, but it's more about finding the right fit. And for me, that is a positive spin on things. I'm not saying who this isn't for. I'm saying who this is for, you know, and it's a deeper, longer look, and it does take a little bit, just more energy to find that worth it. And so, it is hard to make videos that are exciting, but that spark is really interesting.
Yeah. And like I think that video was very helpful. Like whatever you do in life, you've got to find that kernel that is that passion, especially if you're in some sort of content creation line of work, because that is the part that people are going to keep coming back for. If you want return viewers, if you want people to be invested in you. Yeah. And that's, I think, like I was saying to you, that bread and butter video style of yours, I think it's so great that you've thought that you must go back to that and keep that in the channel. And that for me, like people keep saying to me, and that's what I try to lean into it as much as I can, that like people who watch my channel, the typical like me on the camera, like smiling like a little boy, to find that energy wherever I can, because this whole channel is a journey of me discovering tech, because I'm on a different track to a lot of people. I'm playing The Last of Us Part 1 for the very first time. It's amazing. Right. So I should be making more videos like that going, guys, I know you've played this, but have you played this? Those like silly, just excited videos.
Yeah, it totally, and it's, I am like this in all aspects of my life. If we sit down and talk about food, I am going to get excited, and I'm going to excite the person I'm talking to. Yes. That's just how I talk about things, you know. Talking about sports, like I will do those things because life, that's the passion of life and why we're living, you know, and I'm a positive dude.
Yeah. Okay.
Well,
so I didn't know this about, what sports are you into? I'm not into sports at all, so I'm not going to relate very well, but this is interesting.
It's interesting. I'm not that much into sports anymore because I live in Hawaii and because the time zones are so off. The time to watch a football game is like in the evening time or late out. You make your nachos and you're watching the Seahawks. But the time zone doesn't work out now. It's like early morning and lunchtime to watch those things. And that's not the time for me to watch. And I love NFL, I love football and stuff, but I haven't paid attention in years, you know, at this point. And basketball, I used to like basketball a lot, but the Seattle Supersonics, which are the basketball team, they went away. Like they went away 15, 20 years ago. Oh, wow. So I haven't really followed basketball since then because my hometown like team doesn't exist anymore. Yeah. So I don't follow a lot anymore, unfortunately. But I used to like a lot of NFL and basketball.
Okay. Yeah, I've been meaning to get into I really enjoyed sports games when I was younger. So I think there was a cricket game, like a computer game, which I really enjoyed. And American football. I'm sure it was American football. And I just have a terrible memory, so I can't remember the specific. It was a PC game, and it was early, like just past DOS, like Windows 95 days.
Okay.
But I remember loving it. Anyway, so I've been meaning to get into that, like the Madden series of games and all that. Because
it is a high barrier to entry because all the rules and regulations regarding these sports, and then the players, then the teams, and then the actual mechanics of the game. Yeah. It's a high barrier to entry. I get that. Yeah. My favorite games to play sports-wise are tennis games. So that actually was my sport in high school. So I ran cross-country, so I did long-distance running, then also played tennis. And so those are like my two sports. And so there's no running games out there that are that great. So it just falls back to playing tennis games. And those are simple, and I really do enjoy those a lot.
Yeah. Okay, you spoke about food and now running, which is a question that I've been meaning to ask you. You've mentioned the health thing, but we've never really gotten into that. So I don't know if you're keen to talk about that a little bit.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, it's an interesting thing. Pretty good runner. Not those guys who wake up and can run 4-minute miles. I could work and make a 5-minute mile, that kind of thing. And so I ran all through high school. When I joined the Navy, I was above average in running and stuff. And so I usually would like race and be on like Navy run teams and stuff. And then, almost 20 years ago, I had just a series of health issues. It started with a stroke. So I lost all function on my left side. And I'm left-handed, so I had to learn how to write again and how to walk again. And it was crazy. But I recovered from that. It took about 6 months. And then after that, I started getting out of breath all the time, like real bad. Like walking was making me out of breath. And I was a runner. And so I was like, I can't even run anymore, let alone walk. I lived in hospitals for a while, just trying to figure things out throughout the military medical system.
Yes.
And they figured out that like my pulmonary artery, which is like the artery that goes from your heart to your lungs and moves blood and oxygen and all that kind of stuff, it was getting super inflamed. And this to the point where it was like getting like what they call it stenosis. Basically, it was not getting enough blood flow because there's too much inflamed tissue.
Yeah.
And so this artery just decided, hey, I don't like you anymore, and just went nuts, And so that's what was making me out of breath, and it's what likely caused the stroke, which they never out. So I ended up having open heart surgery to fix this. So they like went in, they're like, okay, let's take this artery, clean it out and make it normal again. And so they like, it was very invasive surgery. Like I was like clinically dead for 10 hours, like putting me on like freezing the body, like putting me on these machines and stuff like that. And I was 27 when this happened. So very challenging life circumstances at the time. Got through all that stuff. And yeah, unfortunately the surgery didn't really work. The artery was like, okay, thanks for fixing me. I'm still mad at you. I'm going to get inflamed again. And it just happened all over again. But several years later, I realized that changing my diet like reduced the inflammation in my body and reduced my symptoms. And so, so I made a huge change in my food eating and stuff like that. So I basically cut out like fried foods and gluten and like seed oils and dairy for the most part and sugars. So like those are the big things. Just cut out all the junk that's very pervasive in modern food and just went back to the basics, went back to like traditional foods and stuff like that. Not necessarily reinventing it's the whole thing with my website, my blog, when I started it was like, I don't like this idea that people think that to be healthy, you've got to steam a sweet potato and then cook a bunch of ground beef and eat it with kale. And that's your meal every time. And I'm like, who made that in history? Like nobody said, oh, I look forward to eating that. And so I was like,
yes, I'm with you.
I was like, yeah. And so I was like, let's look at historical recipes, people that used to eat and didn't have these issues. What were they eating? And so that's, and not necessarily like caveman food, but more along the lines of 200 years ago, like before the advent of all these modern recipes, and they're not recipes, but ingredients and stuff. And so that was my journey, right? I got really sick and then changed my diet, got healthy again, and then started the food blog because like with the RG40 or 350M, I was very excited. And I was like, I want to tell people about this, not necessarily to convert other people to eat this way, but rather if you are also in the same boat as me, this is how I did it. So anyway, that's where I am now. Unfortunately, because of all those years of having the inflamed tissue, my artery is now calcified. Like it no longer like behaves in the way that a typical artery would because of the inflammation over the years. Right. And so I still out of breath all the time, still have to take medication and stuff like that. So I can't run. It's basically, it comes down to that I get about 45 seconds of activity and then I like get to the point of passing out. And so unfortunately, that's just not a factor in my life anymore, but I loved it when I did.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, man, that sucks. Because
it's a big story, sorry.
No, that's great. It's just interesting. I never had the like sort of crippling health issues, but we went into like raw vegan food for a while. I don't know why I think because like my mom died of lung cancer, there's like a strong history of heart disease in my family, and we just felt to get really healthy. We'd also read up about like inflammation and foods that cause inflammation, and we're still very aware of that. Yeah, so it is quite a thing, but I can relate in the sense that if running had to be taken away from me, because we've been on a journey the last sort of 3 years. Like I was telling someone tonight, we were having a dinner, and I said to them, I remember running 50 meters. I had to run from the restaurant to my wife's business. So literally like 3 shops down. And I got and my heart rate had spiked so high. And I was super fit at school, so fit that like my resting heart rate was like 45. I was like really fit. And my heart rate spiked really high. I could barely speak and I was just so out of breath and tired. And so we've been on a journey to get fit. And I'm just a natural runner. Sorry, I'm giving a long story just to say, if running had to be taken away from me, like I would really struggle with that. And you've probably had to like sort of with losing that part of your.
I did. The big thing that I learned from that was cycling was something I could do because it's not something that requires you to pedal all the time. It does, but you can at least shift gears, you can coast, you can do all these other things that allow me to catch from the lung perspective. But the other tragic part of that is that here in Hawaii, the hills are too much for me.
It's just hills
so I
everywhere.
can't actually do it. And nobody in Hawaii rides bikes. So drivers don't know how to deal with cyclists on the road. And it's dangerous to ride a bike here. There are some middle way with it, but I don't live in one of those pockets. And that is another thing. I've got this wonderful bike that I bought when we lived in Virginia before moving back here about 5 years ago. And it's not been touched. So it's one of those things. I think that at some point, e-bikes will be cheap enough that I'll be able to do that, and that'll hit the hills. But then I got to find places where I don't get run over. And so I'm always on the lookout for it. But for now, it's fine. I do a lot of walking. I love walking. I've always loved walking. It's just slow running. It's all good.
Yeah, walking is cool because I can imagine the trails over there must be incredible.
Yeah, it is. There are some beautiful hikes, but you got to remember that there are 1 million people living on this island on adventure. And so you basically got to get up the crack at dawn or whatever. All these things you wouldn't really think about, right? But this place is crowded. And so that is another factor too, is it's just enough. You always have this thing where it's, I should go exercise, but there's a little party who's, you don't have to do that,
pain
right?
in the ass.
You need some ice cream, and so that's just a little bit higher in Hawaii because that parking thing is just a little bit a barrier there. Thankfully, we don't have the weather issue. It's not, I can't go and hike because it's snowing.
It's just like warm
we don't
all
have that.
the time.
Right. So, it's funny.
Yeah, I'm so blessed, man. Like, so I keep pining for Cape Town. So I live in up the coast, and Cape Town is one of the major cities of South Africa. I grew up there and I miss it. I really miss it. It's beautiful. It's a great city. The people are great, all that. But I run less than a kilometer and I'm in the forest. So it's just, I'll quickly take the car and then I'm in the forest. And then I go up the mountain. It's just right there. Yeah. I'm really blessed with that. And there's no parking issues. I get there and there's 3 other cars. Hey, it's wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So that is the nice part of living in a small town.
Do you guys have snakes in South Africa? I don't know how,
Yep. We have, I don't think it's as severe as Australia, but we have some pretty deadly snakes.
We don't have any snakes in Hawaii. It's not a native creature. And so there's none.
No snakes whatsoever.
Cool?
That's bizarre,
no
actually.
Snakes on the island. There's one in the zoo, and that's it. And
one in the zoo?
Yeah.
The snake from the zoo got out. It's panic.
Yeah. There are certain things, like you won't find like squirrels here, but there's just little things like that. But there are other like tropical birds and stuff like that. But one of the cool things when it comes to hiking, it was always something to be aware of, depending on where you are in the US, is like rattlesnakes and all that kind of stuff. Not even a thing here. It's pretty cool.
So Hawaii, I'm trying to think from my geography lessons and continental drift, is it a volcanic island or is it a breakaway island from the mainland?
Volcanic, yeah. It's middle of the Pacific. No, nothing around it. And there's active volcanoes on one of the islands, but now most of them are inactive. But yeah, so totally volcanic and not recently populated either. I think that the native Hawaiians Polynesians who came across originally from China, originally, and then kind of made their way across Indonesia, Philippines, and then the Pacific Islands, and then finally over to Hawaii. And one of the least, New Zealand, I think, is the most recently populated place that's modern populated. And then Hawaii is not that far behind it, basically, in terms of age. And volcanic islands that they're really very secluded. And so there are some animals that were brought over, like pigs and stuff like that.
That's what I mean.
Brought over from
the wildlife is interesting and different because there weren't a lot of animals there to begin with. So probably there's lots of birds because they can just fly over there.
Yeah, totally.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then we have a couple, mongoose is our main small animal pest. Not really a pest, what I mean, but the mongoose is there. And it's because it came over, I think, they brought it over to specifically get rid of something else, and then they just kind of stuck around. Yeah. And so this is how things are, but really interesting.
That is interesting, yeah. Oh, that's cool. Okay, so that bums me out that you can't run, but anyway. You make do. But that's, thanks for sharing. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
So I'll ask you about your outdoor hobbies. This is just, I would have asked you this in the preamble, but so you've said in a few videos, man, I'm not sure, maybe I'm getting you confused with another YouTuber, but
it's all good.
Did you mention that you're not playing the Steam Deck, you're playing the ROG Ally more? Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, that's me. I have the ROG Ally X, and I do play that more than the Steam Deck. I love the Steam Deck. Steam Deck's great, but the battery life on the ROG Ally X is just a better fit for me, in terms of just not having the anxiety about, is the battery going to die kind of thing. So I have been using that the most. I'm going on a flight tomorrow to California. I'm going to bring the Ally X.
Okay, cool.
I'll probably bring the Steam Deck too because I'm going to a media event where a new handheld would be shown off, and so I wanted to do size comparisons.
Yes.
But I plan on using the Ally X
As you're gaming.
Yeah, and so that's like my modern handheld, basically. And to be honest, I really like to use it when on travel. I love playing PC games on a flight. It's like it's super fun. It's just, I'm living this future right now. Like, I love that idea. But when I'm at home, I will just grab the little stuff, like the Trim UI brick I've been using a lot lately, things like that.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. All right. That's interesting. Yeah. I keep telling my family, just hang in there. Like it's not really my father-in-law, but my mother-in-law's new husband. And I keep telling him, just hang in there. The channel's getting there. Eventually, I'll be able to give you a big device because he's got huge hands and he wants to play old PC games. And so the only real thing for him to get is eventually like a Steam Deck or a ROG Ally or something. Right. So I'm like, just hang in there. Someone's eventually going to give me something for free and you can have it. So the goal is to grow the channel so my family can get Steam Decks.
Exactly. It's beautiful. Yeah, they are wonderful machines, but we are just cursed with having too many of them. And that's the issue. It's like each of these are amazing in their own right, and I try to capture that amazingness. But yes. I also do own over 200 of these things, and it does make it hard to parse through that and just focus and enjoy on each one.
Yeah. And that's the thing. The ROG Ally X is, well, by saying it's the one you're using, it's more of that's a Russ decision and a Russ problem, rather than the average consumer issue, because probably if I sat you down and I said to you, okay, so which one would you recommend to the consumers? You probably end up saying the Steam Deck. I don't know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Steam Deck.
Oh, yeah. There you go. Okay, so what are you playing on the ROG Ally? What modern game are you playing?
Yeah, so I've been trying to slowly get through Marvel Spider-Man, the first one, mostly because I want to play Spider-Man 2 eventually, because that one looks very exciting. And it's going to be coming on PC in like March or something.
Okay,
and so
cool.
That seems like the great game I want to play, but I got to get through these other ones because I'm a bit of a completionist. And
yes,
Marvel Spider-Man is a big game. It feels a lot like Grand Theft Auto. It's like you can go off on these tangents, but there is a storyline, and I will get sucked into the tangents and all that kind of stuff. And it's overwhelming for me.
Yes.
And so it's taken me a long time to get through it. I probably put in, 5 or 6 hours on the PS4 originally. And then when I switched over to start playing PC games more, I had to restart the game. So I had to get past that and then get more into it.
Okay.
But stupid me, like there's a new Steam sale and I bought Ghost of Tsushima. Have you heard of this one? It's like also a PS4 game.
Okay.
It's available on PC too.
Okay.
And it's basically a samurai like open world game.
All right.
And it is more focused. You go through the story, each little side thing.
Okay, it's working
helps you
for your
in
brain.
Like getting better. Yeah, it's a revenge based. I don't know why that's really drawing me. There's so many things about it where I'm like, oh, this is so good.
Yes.
The Japanese language track on it is excellent. So I'm playing it in Japanese with English subtitles, so it feels otherworldly, even though it was made by a Seattle studio.
Okay.
Like, yeah. It's by the guys who made Sly Cooper, of all things. You know?
Wow.
Yeah, and so I love this game, and I'm already 5 hours into it. I've only owned it for a few days because it was on the Steam sale.
Wow.
So that's the one I'll be playing on this flight tomorrow, basically.
Okay,
Ghost
cool.
of Tsushima, when I should be playing Spider-Man.
Yeah. That sounds like another Russ problem. Like, you approach things like the same as a YouTube channel. You're like, okay, if I'm going to play that game, I have to play the first game. I've got to do it.
Right. Yeah, I'm gonna say, like with TV shows, things like a new season of this is out. Well, I got to go rewatch season 1 because I want to be in the right mindset too. Because Spider-Man is made by the same studio that made Ratchet and Clank, and so it's funny that these older studios are now like these kind of modern. It's Insomniac and Sucker Punch, and so it's super cool to follow that trajectory too. And be like, all right, this is the modern Ratchet and Clank kind of thing.
Yeah, I love that. Like as well, because I fired up The Last of Us Part 1 today. And I saw it was Naughty Dog. And I was like, oh, Crash Bandicoot guys.
Jack and Dexter.
Yeah,
Crash Bandicoot and Jack and Dexter.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then you stop playing the game and you're like, wow, that's incredible. How technical we really are old guys. But it is cool to see.
Yeah, totally.
All right.
Yeah, I love it.
So what was that game? Ghost
of Tsushima. It starts with a T, T-S-U, Shima.
Oh, I feel like I saw this on the sale.
There's a new one coming out next year. And so... but a different storyline. But it's set in like feudal Japan. We're talking like 13th century. So no technology. And it's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
There's some stealth elements to it.
Okay.
But you're really quick and brutal fight. None of this like taking out hit points kind of stuff. It's just 3 slices, they're out.
Okay,
and
cool.
Very
timing
satisfying. And like very samurai. And so I love
Loving
it. My wife, another tangent here, but my wife, her family so their family name is Nagai.
Okay.
And that is a samurai clan from Japan.
Oh,
and
wow.
so when her grandfather moved over from Japan to Hawaii, like we have the documents that show
Yes.
that he gave up his stipend of however many bushels of rice a year from the emperor for being a samurai. Like not him, his ancestors. And so they are a samurai
What a
family.
heritage.
You know, like their family crest is like certain temples in Japan, in Fukuoka, which is like Western Japan where they're from. And so super cool. Like that this is like part of my wife's heritage too. It's like this samurai thing. And I've only seen it a couple times come out with the family, but sometimes it's like the family gatherings, people get worked up and I'm like, wow, this is like a Kurosawa film right now. Like they're all getting upset and very like samurai. And it's like very cool. Yeah.
That's cool.
But anyway, this is a fun tangent, but that's also one of the reasons why I'm like Ghost of Tsushima is so fun.
Yeah.
It's like I'm just living in that world.
So you like playing and you said to your wife, look, I'm doing it. It's just like, oh dear.
Yeah, it's you. Look. No.
Oh gosh, that's great. I want to go check that out because I signed up for a Humble Bundle because I just got so sick of like choosing games. So I thought maybe I can just get people to send me some games every month. And this one came up. It was, I think it was in a bundle or was just on a really good sale. So I might go and get it. Cool. Yeah. Okay. And then in terms of handhelds, like retro handhelds, which is there one that you're playing right now? Or are there a couple?
It's the Trimui brick right now.
You said yes.
I've been basically arm wrestling MIUI, like the really smaller, operating system to be exactly what I'm looking for. And so I've done a couple modifications, added in like arcade games because I always like to have those and they're not natively supported. And then also changed out the boot logo so it says Retro Game Core when I started up. And then I've also changed the order of the games. Like it always bothers me, and you probably see this too, is like when you pull up a games list, it'll say Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color, because it's alphabetical, right? And it drives me nuts every time. I'm like, no, it should be Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance. And so I had to talk to Sean, who's like the developer. I'm like, how can I change the order of these systems to make more sense in my mind, And so you can set up collections with MIUI too. So you like can create basically playlists. And so I've done that. I've gone through, I'm like, okay, let's make a Metroid collection. Now, what order are they going to be in? It's all very important to me. And I spent several days going through and getting it all set up. And I'm so proud of it that I ended up making a custom version of this. And I'm going to be seeing Bob Wolf tomorrow. And so in this California thing. And so I'm like, hey, man, bring your Trimui brick because I got something for you. And so I made an SD card for him. Cool. I'm calling it Bob UI. And, he hasn't seen it yet.
Oh, he's going to love that.
Yeah, I think it'll be fun. Yeah. And it's just, that's what I've been doing with Trimui brick. Okay. And I've been playing games too, not just like fiddling around. So I've been playing Castlevania Aria of Sorrow. So it's a Game Boy Advance Castlevania game. Okay. It's good. Like I've only really, my biggest exposure is Symphony of the Night on PS1. And this one has got a lot of those vibes, but a little bit more forgiving, like a little bit easier to get into. And so I'm liking that a lot more. Like I feel like it's made for a slightly younger audience. And so just a lower barrier entry for me. And so, really enjoying that one. Nice. I use it for testing all the time, but I've never actually gotten hours into it like I am now. And so, really good game.
Yeah, I feel like I did get into that about a year ago, and I really enjoyed it. Just lovely artwork and all that. I think it was TechTube that got me into it.
Okay. Yeah, it's a great game. I want to play the other, I forgot the other name, Harmony of Dissonance or whatever. Yeah, I want to get into these GBA ones. Yeah,
they're good. They are very good. And I just appreciate
I've got these
the
vivid memories. Yeah, I've got these vivid memories of like mid-2000s. I did a lot of deploying back then, so it was a lot of ships and stuff before I got sick and everything. And I remember I wasn't playing a lot of games. I had a GameCube, but I didn't have any portable systems. And I remember people playing these Castlevania games on Game Boy Advances on the ships. And they'd just be like, they get in their rack or their bed at night and they just play it for hours and stuff.
Yes.
And people talking about it and getting excited, like, oh, did you find this? Like at this time, you didn't really have internet access. So you couldn't look up stuff because we would be in like, this is middle of the Iraq war. So they have all these security restrictions in place where you cannot connect outside. You can't email your loved ones, all that kind of stuff for security reasons, basically. And so you could not get on the internet to go to FAQs to find out where to go next in Castlevania, right? And so these people would sit around and talk about it all day because they're just trying to figure out what they could do. Yeah. And so you've really vivid memories about it. And now I am living that life 20 years later, which is funny.
That's nice. Yeah, I love that about this hobby. I really do. So I wanted to ask you, are you working on a sort of top device, or have you, I don't think you've released one, like a top devices of the
I haven't.
year. Are you working?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So usually I try to do it around the 10th of December. So I feel like that's enough time to be able to buy something and get it if you are waiting on something like that. But because of the travel that I'm going on, it'll be a little bit delayed. It'll be probably one of the next videos I make, but it's going to be a good week and a half. But I'm doing a little different this year. Usually I just do, here are like the 10 favorites and for each reason. And usually by price point, like best $150 one, best $200 one, whatever. This time I think I'm going to treat it more like a game awards and be like best vertical, best unexpected surprise, that kind of stuff, you know, most disappointing one. And so that's what I'm thinking of doing, just to make it a little bit more interesting and more of a celebration of this year, because we've had a lot of handhelds and it's really hard to pick and choose. I think people, I don't want anybody to just wait and say, Russ says this is his favorite, so this is the one I need to buy. I don't want everyone to get to that point, you know. I just want to say, let's celebrate these good ones and what makes them good. And so I'm going to try to truncate that a little bit. I've got my nephew who lives here on island. He's 21, 22. He runs a photography studio here in Hawaii, mostly high school photos, sports team photos, that kind of stuff. But he's all into tech. He's a huge Peter McKinnon fan. And so he has been helping me with some B-roll from time to time. I've been really trying to up my own, but he's great because it's collaborative. Like I get someone in there and I'm like, oh, what if we did this? Like those are the things that sometimes don't come up when you're alone. And he can film me playing, which is so hard to capture. And I'm always jealous of your intro video where it's like you walking and holding a handheld and stuff. I'm like, how did he do that? Did he get a tripod? Like those are the things that I'm always thinking about. And so we're going to work together on this best of 2024 video and just kind of fun. Get some really cool B-roll.
Okay, good for you. That sounds like lots of fun. Yeah, I feel like maybe I also want to do something similar because we have had so many devices. And when I started this, we didn't have like segments of devices. There'd be like the vertical device. Who made a vertical device this year? Nobody except me. Like that's where we were about 2 years ago. Yeah, I'm also thinking of that. I've already done my favorite devices because I thought that would be fun, just like personal. But I also want to do like a game awards kind of thing. I don't know. We'll see. But
yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, because I feel like I think we're in agreement that probably the Retroid Pocket 5 is like probably the all-rounder of the year, like probably the best device of the year. But there's so many other devices that have shone. So like you said, I don't want to isolate just one device and just go, this was the best device of the year, bye. I really want to like point out this one was cool because, and this older one, like I just did that video where I pointed out that the Miu Mini is still great. Still say, maybe you should consider this old one still good. Because like you said to me the other day, you can't get older devices from other retailers, but Anbernic, you can still get a lot of the older devices.
It's very true. And yeah, it's fun to celebrate that. And I think it really comes down to what do we end up using the most? And each of us are going to have a different use case and different reasoning for that. And my handheld of the year, I don't expect to be the Retroid Pocket 5. It's just too early. I feel like it'll be my handheld of next year, if anything.
All right.
We'll see how it goes.
Oh, you feel like
I'm very excited for this.
Yeah, that's a very Russ perspective. Like it's too early, needed to mature in my mind. Yeah. Okay. That's great. I can't wait for it. Okay, cool. All right. The next question, I'm going to skip the desert island because I'm pretty sure we've done it in the past. But have I asked you your fondest, earliest gaming memory? Have I asked you that question?
I think you may have, but you showed me the questions beforehand, so I've been thinking about it a little bit. Yes. And I do have a memory that kind of came up as a result of the device I'm working on right now, which is the Neo DMG. I'm working on this. And this brought up some very vivid Game Boy out. So I'm going to talk about that in the video. But the same person I had those memories with, I started thinking about him. His name was Nick, and we were in elementary school together. He had all this stuff that I never had, basically. So I always wanted to go over his house and play with new gadgets. And so it unlocked another memory. And that was basically, he had a Nintendo Power subscription, and I didn't growing up. And that came with a free game the first year, which was Dragon Warrior. And I had mentioned it a couple times that that's like my first RPG experience, but I didn't parse together that it was him and that it was at his house. Like it was just a fuzzy memory that became super clear overnight. And so I remember it comes with a map, and we had a map, but we were at his house. His TV was like a little bit elevated on a dresser. We had our controllers, and we just pulled an all-nighter to try to beat the game. And we couldn't because it's so long of a game. Yeah. So we were like tired and haggard and napped for a little bit at 9 a.m. and then got up again and just then finally finished it, you know. And that's like a real core memory for me because that must have been 8 years old. Like I was very young at that point. And yeah, it's such a fun
That's
little,
so cool.
like, that was my first RPG experience. And we pushed through and we played it and we were like, I don't know if you ever played this game, but like at first you're trying to find Gold Man because that guy gives you the most gold when you kill him, right? It's all turn-based battles and stuff. And you can slog through and get your 10 gold per thing, or you can kill that guy and get 200 gold. But he's in a dangerous area. So you have to go in this dangerous area where these enemies are pretty hard, right? And he can get them. But then later on, you don't need gold anymore. You need experience to be able to get higher stats, you know? And so then you're looking for the metal slime. And this is the typical Dragon Warrior slimes, like the guy with a little thing on his head. This one's a metal version, and he's also in the most dangerous area. And he only has 3 hit points, but he loves to run away. He loves to dodge. So it's very hard to get those 3 hit points. But if you kill him, you get a ton of XP to the point where you can level up very quickly. Yeah. And that was, those experiences were like looking at the map and seeing where the enemies are and stuff. And then, so fun. Yeah, I love that.
So good. Yeah, those memories are amazing. It's so funny because your friend was Nick. A lot of my gaming memory, because I didn't own a PC, so like I always tell everyone, I don't know how I played these games. Like you said, they're so fuzzy, but I know I played Year of the, is it Year of the Tentacle or Day of the Tentacle, whatever. And then there's another one that popped up that I just got all the episodes on Steam, so I can't wait to play it again. I have all these memories, and it's Nicholas, my friend Nicholas, who I would do an all-nighter on his PC playing Wolfenstein 3D, the Tentacle game, and then a bunch of others. So a lot of my memories are attached to that. Yeah, so it's just weird that your friend was also Nick.
Yeah, it's funny. And it's sad because we moved away when I was from one town to another, and it was a couple hours away. And so I never really had contact with him again. Yeah. This is in the old days. I could write letters. I think we wrote letters every once in a while, but that was about it. Yeah. And so, and it just sucks that I lost contact with him. Yeah. But, it's just
so I'm like such an old man remembering, because my best friend when I was really little, like younger than my son, I remember because like my mom passed away when I was like 8.5, so she was still alive. So I can remember like I must have been 6 or 7. So it's really early memories. We used to go to each other's houses like every day after school, and he had a Game Boy. So I never owned a Game Boy. That's why I made that video, my first Game Boy, and like I'm 40-year-old man. And and I remember playing the Game Boy. I don't have a great memory always, but then I'm collecting cartridges, and I'll get the cartridge and I'll be like, hang on, I played this. I keep saying I don't have all this gaming knowledge, but then I get the cartridge or I play the game and I'm like, I've definitely played this. So I just love remembering those things. It's really cool.
Yeah, that's amazing. And sorry to hear about your mom too as well.
That's all right. Yeah. That's one of the reasons I was obsessed with a healthy food at one point, because I'd heard my friend went into remission with cancer, and one of the big things was he went on what's called the Hallelujah diet. I might have mentioned this to you in the past, and that's just like raw food. And so that's one of the I thought maybe I can just curb that in my life by going on this raw food diet and all that kind of thing. So yeah, that's like one of
the things I've always learned about that, because there's always arguments vegan versus when I skewed more towards the paleo spectrum, which is more like meat and vegetables kind of thing. But it always comes down to when somebody makes a drastic change like that, it's not necessarily that they found, like, for example, raw foods and that raw foods are the secret. It's that in that journey, they got rid of all the junk.
Yes.
And I agree. Like that's what it really comes down to. It's like clean eating, even though clean is like a weird word. That's the thing that people don't realize, is like being a little bit more mindful about the calories and everything else is what does it. It's not necessarily like avocado is a superfood. It's never anything like that. It's more along the lines of just, going back to basics.
Yeah, I agree completely, because I remember I was sitting around in South Africa called a barbecue, a braai, sitting around a braai with a friend and having a little bit of an argument because I was on the raw food thing and he was on the paleo thing. And then eventually, like, I started to realize both of us have cut out preservatives, we've cut out processed carbs, and because we're both feeling great. So we're both trying to sell our like idea. And that's very true. Yeah. Clean eating.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Russ, I did have but I think you've also answered this before. Do you have an answer prepared for what are you most proud of with your career?
No, I don't. That's the one I've been struggling with. Because I think I may have answered it before, but it's hard. Like every day for me is like a proud day. You know, like it's like I'm every video I'm like someone's like, oh, what's your favorite video you've ever made? I'm like, the last one. You know, like I don't really know what to say at that point because all I'm trying to do is just make it better than the last one.
Yeah.
And I've streamlined my process. I'm very happy about that kind of stuff. Changed the way I'd make videos and stuff, but there's hardly any moments where I'm like, oh, I'm super proud of that.
Yeah.
I think I may have mentioned this before, but the one that comes to me is that a year and a half ago, 2 years ago maybe, when the Steam Deck was first coming out, I got contacted by an NFL player, football player, which are celebrities here. And he sent his Steam Deck to me to set up basically for emulation. And I was like, I don't do those requests. I used to way back in the RG350 days. I like spent more time helping other people, like making SD cards and then doing all these personalized repairs for people and stuff. I just can't anymore. But when it was an NFL player, I was like, all right, fine. And it was for the Cowboys. And I don't like that team, but I was like, all right, fine. And so he sent it over to me and it was all grimy and stuff. So I cleaned it up real good. And then I like fixed it up. And then I even made a personalized video for him. Hey man, here's a 10-minute video of what I've done, how did we get this to work, and what to do if something goes wrong. Yeah. So like a personalized guide, basically. Sent that to him, and then he sent me back a game-worn jersey. So it was like a jersey he wore in a game, dirt, grass stains on it and stuff like that. It stunk like B.O., like a dude who just played a football game. And so we got it framed, and then I put like I went and bought his rookie football card, and I put it in there. This guy is not a superstar. I'm not sure if he's still playing, but like super fun. That a super cool. Proud moment that I've got like this cool jersey from this guy and it took me a couple weeks to really get this thing set up for him specifically. He sent me a list of games and stuff and whatnot, and very PS2 minded. And so it took me a long time to get everything working and whatnot.
Yeah.
But that was a really fun. I never would have been able to do that if I hadn't made like some random EmuDeck video, which is super cool.
That is so cool, man. But I'm hearing you, and I'm hearing like, it's really nice to hear you say what you're saying, because so from the first episode to the second episode to this, I did want to track this a little bit, and I forgot to, I think I missed a question, but you, in the first episode, I think we didn't touch on it that much, but you were definitely like in the weeds, and you were like struggling with like satisfaction, like never happy, but you're like, I've got to get to the next one, to get to the next one, get to the next one. And then we got to the second episode, and you had this really zen thing that actually impacted me a lot, where you said, man, if you get, I think we said this not off air, but you said, if you get 10% of your subscriber base, good. And that really impacted me, because I am like really at the grassroots level. And so to just take that weight off and just be like, the video's made now. You can't control the numbers. Like you could change the thumbnail, right? But your tune changed from episode 1 to episode 2. And now to hear you say your proudest moment is the last video. And it's definitely, it's really nice to see. And it's encouraging.
It's one of those, you definitely have to make the video for you. You're the one who has to live with it, you know? And that's one of the things I'm always working on. And I want to sometimes take an extra day and really polish it more and whatnot, but I have to just get to that point where it's good enough. One of my favorite sayings is something that I learned while working on my books, was like, a poem is never finished, only abandoned. And I think that's like the perfect metaphor for these videos, right? We never finish it. It's never perfect. We just abandon it at some point and be like, that's as far as I'm going to be able to take it. You know? And so there's always something there that kind of keeps us going. And and the one who, my measurement, and this is, I don't know, a little bit weird, but like when I wake up in the morning, like I know I made a good video if I'm excited to watch it myself. Even though I've watched it 10 times already, you know, I'm like, oh, it's finally out. Let's see what I have to say. You know? It's obviously something I already know, right? But if I'm at that point where I'm excited to watch it, I'll listen to it on the drive into the studio the next day. Like that to me is okay. I'm proud of this one. I really nailed it. And other times it's, I'm a certain caliber of person where when a video fails on me, that is more motivation than a successful video. I hate having banger after banger video. I'm like, oh God, there's too many views. Too many people like this. I can't keep up. I can't. The weight of expectations is
overwhelming.
Too much, you know? I love it when it's like just falls on its face, where it's like, I thought that this was a really exciting thing and that it's going to be a great video and whatnot, and nobody watches it. And it's okay. Yeah. This is the motivation I needed, because now I'm going to just overcome it. Yeah. And the last video I made was very similar to that, where it was like, didn't quite hit the mark for me, but now I'm very motivated for the INEO DMG video, which I've been working on for weeks now. I've been thinking about this thing for a long time.
Cool. Yeah, let's end it there, because that's great, man. Thanks, Russ. Yeah, thanks again, and thanks for twisting my arm to do another episode. The year was it's winding to an end, and I was like, let's just call the podcast quits. And you called me, so thanks so much because it gives it a nice ending to the. I'm really glad we got to chat.
No, I'm honored, and I've been looking forward to this all year, and so I just thank you for having me on. And I love talking about this stuff because we always end up going in different directions and talking about things that may not be on the schedule, but I love it. I don't get much Adin time to actually chat with you, so I do appreciate this.
Thanks, Russ. Thanks so much. Cheers, man.